Right, we are now having to say goodbye to our SABC2 viewers. It's been an absolute pleasure being with you this week. We are going to continue to keep our finger on the pulse in Senekal. In fact, that'll be the majority of the attention of the broadcast on SABC News.
Absolutely. As our SABC2 viewers, please do take care, do stay safe, and we'll see you again on Monday. But tomorrow, of course, and Sunday is Weekend Morning Live with Witbooi and Ngongwane. So do take care.
All right, welcome back into our news at 8 o'clock. The top story this morning: 2 men are expected to apply for bail in the Senekal Magistrates Court in the Free State.
Now, it's alleged that the two murdered the 21-year-old farm manager, Brendin Horner, 2 weeks ago, and Horner's body was tied to a pole with injuries to his neck and face.
With the first appearance, farmers wanted law officials to hand over the accused to them. And for more on the story, let's find out what the latest is. We've got Reginald Witbooi standing by. And in fact, before we get to him, let's just carry on with a little bit of responses that we did get this morning. And I think we had an interview a bit earlier this morning with Agriculture and Land Reform Minister Toko Didiza, who really has appealed for calm in the Free State town of Senekal.
Indeed, Leanne. The Minister of Agriculture, Land Reform, Toko Didiza, as you said, appealed for calm in the Free State town of Senekal. But there is serious concern that violence could break out with demonstrations by both AfriForum and the EFF outside the court.
We are therefore concerned that the way in which the matters in Senekal had turned out had actually hyped emotions on all sides, because we know that issues of farm murder, farm safety, as well as rural safety in general, are matters that are of concern to all of us, and even government is concerned equally like the citizens. However, it is important that we find a way in which we deal with these matters and not take them into our own hands. The fact that the police have moved, the fact that the justice system is actually dealing with the matter now, my own view as a minister is that all of us need to be calm and actually allow the law to take its course. Secondly, there are issues of relations that arise out of the land rights questions in our farms, particularly among farm dwellers, farm workers, and farmers, which are matters that we need to consistently resolve rather than resorting to violence from all sides.
As we say, we are going to be going back to Senekal. That's something we're going to do right now. We've got Samkele Maseko, who's there, where a crowd of EFF supporters have gathered. Leaders are addressing them right now. And I think let's try and cross into that address that's taking place right now to some of the supporters that have gathered in their numbers. And you can see that the crowd is actually swelling as the morning gets underway. So let's see if we can get to Samkele Maseko. Good morning to you.
Right, seemingly not quite ready for us. As you can see, much activity, and as Police Minister Begicele indicated, there will be a strong police presence, and the Minister also saying that they are ready to actually deal with what may come out of today's protest by the EFF and AfriForum. So Samkele Maseko is in Senekal with the EFF supporters, and then of course you have Reginald Witbooi out with the AfriForum supporters, and they are getting ready and clearly demarcated where each of the groups should be.
We've been told that we've got Samkele on the line now, so the visuals are up and running. We're able to cross to him. Samkele, we've been seeing that some leaders of the EFF have been addressing the crowds gathering. I suppose the big question is, Julius Malema expected there in the area? Is there any word on this? Let's get the latest from you.
Yes, Sakina, EFF members have gathered here in their numbers. You can see that my colleague is showing you that they are here. They've gathered in their numbers to protect state assets. They are currently singing struggle songs. Patrick Sindani, a CCT member of the party, saying that they want Luthuli House in Johannesburg to hear them defending state assets. They want to see and they want to hear the Minister of Police, Brendin, listening to their cries that they must not be treated like stepchildren in this country. You've heard Julius Malema, the leader of the EFF, being very vocal that they are not here to protect the killers of Brendin, but they are here to protect the state assets. They are here to protect the police. They are here to protect the vans. You can hear and you can see some of the EFF members are not wearing PPEs. We can hear that they've come as far as KwaZulu-Natal. They've come from other provinces as well to come and to protect state assets. When we were driving in here, Sakina, we also came across Vusi Khoza, the provincial leader of the EFF in KwaZulu-Natal. There was a roadblock coming into Senekal. He was stopped. They were searched. EFF buses were stopped. They took his firearm. They are trying to prevent any violence that may take place here in Senekal. That would be the SABC. They've got and they've barricaded the roads. They've separated the protesters. The EFF is threatening to protest in the streets of Senekal. But at this point in time, the police are searching each and every bus, each and every car that's driving into Senekal.
Much Samkele Maseko will park it there for the time being with Samkele there in the town of Senekal with the EFF supporters, and we're going to try and go back to Reginald Witbooi. As you heard there very interestingly from Samkele Maseko early, and the police searching every vehicle entering the town of Senekal and making sure that they, I suppose, reduce the potential for violence by confiscating weapons.
Yeah, and this is a very, very big worry in this troubled town, as we can call it, but I think a bigger representation of perhaps what's going on in the nation. And I mean, let's just hope that today is something that is controlled. As you're saying, the SAPS are there in strong numbers and force, and I mean, it just is sort of one of those stories that you're watching with bated breath, hoping that nothing does actually happen, because you would rather see something like this leading in the most positive possible way. But you can already sense that both parties mean business, and you know, this of course all ahead of that court appearance that will be happening. Not too sure what time the proceedings are going on, but the police minister, as we have been saying, has said that they are ready for any eventuality that may happen in and around that town. So let's keep an eye on what's going on. And we have told you that we've also got Reginald Witbooi. We're trying to get his visuals up and running now, where he was standing more on the farmer's side. And, you know, that clear line and distinct factions, you can just see that tension is right there. However, analysis time, and this I think is going to shed a lot more light on what those rumblings really are.
Indeed, and we have Mukoni Rachitanga, who's of course a consultant, a social and political commentator, speaking to us about his musings around this particular matter of what is happening in Senekal. Mukoni, good morning. Thanks for being with us here on Morning Live. So we're watching these visuals, and we have anticipated all week a standoff in Senekal this morning, and it seems as though we are going to get one, although the police have done their best to keep the different fractions apart. But what are your thoughts around this type of racial tension and standoff 26 years into our democracy?
Well, the first thing to note, Sakina, is that it's really not surprising. I mean, this country has been split in part of the organizing principle of this country for over 350 years. What is concerning is that there isn't sufficient national discourse about it, and what it is we must do as a country to defeat racism. And as one of the results of that is that the solutions are being proffered by quarters that have no capacity to solve the problem. So your extremist groups, because because at the end of the day, race relations in Senekal and the rest of the country need to be harmonious. And what is happening today is not going to get the country to that point.
So, Mukuni, also just, speaking to the various sides that are actually represented in this particular matter, and it's something that you also highlight in your article. You talk about the perceptions that exist around farm murders, one, and also about just harmonious or the lack of harmonious race relations in especially rural communities. So, looking at what is happening now, some people would suggest that there is something more sinister brewing here. What's your view on that?
Well, the perceptions around this farm attack are part of the problem, because since the advent of democracy, there have been people who have been marketing this perception that there is something more sinister. In other words, farmers are being targeted because they are white. And so, therefore, there's some quarter out there that is held back on attacking farmers. And you hear this kind of language about genocide, about all sorts of things, and it doesn't accord with. And here, before I make a point, I must say that one death is one too many. So there is nobody who is going to, or should say that because the statistics are low, therefore it's okay. That's not the point. The point is that if you look at the numbers involved, the numbers of the attacks and the casualties, they don't seem to be congruent with the amount of agitation that's taking place out there. And that agitation seems to suggest that there is this group of people who think that there is something more than meets the eye has more or less become hegemonic. And you see it in my article. I cite, for instance, the comments by one Major General Van Steen, who is the Deputy General Manager of the Transvaal Agricultural Union, who is also echoing the same sentiment. And that sentiment is problematic because the more people begin to think that they are being targeted for racial reasons, you are going to get this sort of terror. And there's no criminal out there who is going to target a farmer because that farmer is white. The criminals attack those that they believe have got something to steal. And I'm saying that this perception is part of the problem, and we need to address it.
Yeah, it is a very, very big issue, and something that has been present in South Africa for as long as we've had democracy. You know, there's the issue of the farmers coming forward saying that they are at the brunt of these brutal farm killings. Others saying that is not the case, that it is pure criminality. And the two parties are just not meeting. Now, let's get to the bottom of something like this. From your article, and you do research this, you do speak quite openly about this with a lot of different voices in there. What is at play? What honestly is at play on the farms and these brutal killings that are currently taking place?
I think it's a number of issues. One is that you are dealing with a highly unequal society where poverty reigns supreme, and so you are going to get this sort of violent crime. But I must also say that you see the violent nature of the crimes themselves are concerning because they may be communicating something about the nature of South African society. I mean, violence is almost like the lingua franca solving problems. I mean, you look at the high levels of domestic violence in this country. They are hugely concerning. You look at the social protests. They very easily turn violent. And I think that there is something in the sociology of the society that we need to attend to. And you see that pattern replicated elsewhere. So I think that's one thing that we need to look at. And of course, we're not going to solve these problems if we do not devote some level of intellectual resources into finding out exactly what the problem is. There would also be issues in the farming communities around race relations, as one was pointing out earlier. There would also be issues around labor relations. There would be a whole host of localized issues, but there would also be other issues that more or less cut across South African society, like the nature of the violence, as I was saying.
So, Mokoni, as we wrap this up, as your article says, Senekal is a shard of a troubled nation. How do we move forward? What are some of the opportunities that this potential flashpoint presents for us as a nation to move forward from?
There is no other solution other than the leadership of South Africa getting together to tackle this and many other challenges. And by the leadership of South Africa, I don't just mean the political leadership. I mean the political leadership, the religious sector, trade unions, business, everybody. We need to rekindle the practice of taking our national problems and challenges seriously, taking them together. Because, as I say, if we do not do that, if we don't privilege leadership, then extremist groups are going to take over the issues, and there will be no solution other than heightening social acrimony and division and bitterness.
All right, Bokani, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks so much for talking to us about what's currently unfolding and an opinion piece he has written this morning that we are talking to. We're watching these live visuals. Let's in fact go now back to our reporters that are covering the story for us. We heard from him a bit earlier, and that's Reginald Witbooi. You can see what's happening on the side that Samkele Maseko is. That's where the EFF supporters are gathering. But on the other side, where Reginald is, that's where you'll see the farmers gathering, as well as a lot from AfriForum. Let's go back to Reginald and just get an update from him. Reginald?
A very good morning to you once again, Leanne. We are still here on the N5 where farmers will be making their way from Witbooi to the Senekal Magistrates Court, which is about 65 kilometers from here, and we know they are also, just like the economic freedom fighters there in Senekal, descend on that town and want to be there for the court appearance of the two men accused of killing 21-year-old Brendin Horner. Now, some say that there's a different law for a certain racial group in this country, and we know that about 2 weeks ago, when the two accused made their first appearance, chaos broke out where a 51-year-old farmer, Andre Pina, was arrested for malicious damage to property, public violence, and then also another charge now for attempted murder. But we are here with the farmers, and they are with the group Unite Against Farm Murder Attacks. People have been busting. They are here with their bakkies, motorbikes, and if I can just speak to you, Sir Brent, you came all the way from Cape Town in the Western Cape. Why exactly?
Obviously, we started a group, Right to Freedom, quite some time ago, and we've actually been pushing against corruption. We feel corruption is the cause of all the problems we have in this country. And we obviously support Stop Farm Murders, so we are here. We are obviously against these brutal attacks, which is unacceptable. And we have to support them, simple as that.
And then people are saying, I saw on social media that they are expecting chaos to break out once again. What do you make of that?
Well, I think it's it's propaganda. They don't want this to happen. They don't want us to highlight what's going on in the country. And the best way to stop us is to basically threaten with violence. We're not here for violence. We're not here to break any laws. We're here to make a stand and stand against corruption and stand against the violence in this country. That's why we're here.
Thank you very much. I'm coming to you, Kali Roo. You are from the Unite Against Farm Murder Attacks, and I spoke to you earlier on asking you the question, what do you make of the EFF's leader, Julius Malema's statement when he said yesterday, if we have to come to, and I quote, if we have to come to Senekal for a civil war, so let's be it. What do you make of that?
I think it's very unprofessional for a leader of the third biggest party in South Africa to incite violence, because I think if he incite violence, then he is part of the problem, and that needs to be addressed very urgently, because we are peaceful, we're going to be disciplined, and I think that is what we expect for everybody that is involved today, the same.
And then still, I asked you this question also earlier on, the racial tension between white and black. Do you think that this incident itself, that played itself out in Senekal, is racially motivated?
No, definitely not. I don't think it's racially motivated. I think this is, if you look at the method of the skilling of this poor farm manager, the torturing and the brutality involved, and I think this is, if you look at what the problem is here in Senekal of corrupt officials, and also with stock theft syndicates, I think that needs to be addressed urgent, and that is not a racial thing. I think some politicians want to make it a racial thing, but it's not a racial thing. This, for me, is definitely a target against the food security, because it's not only the farmer that are involved here, it's his family as well as his employees. And also, that's why we say it's not a racial thing, because everybody are affected with these brutal killings that happened on our farming community.
You say that it's not a racial thing, and people want to know, you pay so much attention to farm murders, and yes, it threatens food security in our country because we need food on our table. But what about the other lives lost on a daily basis in this country?
I think also that is very important to be addressed, and I think there's platforms to address that, and that's why there's for us a difference between a farm murder and a normal murder. Not that there is a difference between murders, and as what I earlier mentioned, it's the method that these killings took place. That is the problem.
Thank you very much. Well, that was Kali Roo from the Unite Against Farm Murders, and I also spoke to Brent, who made his way all the way from Cape Town to the Eastern Free State here in Witbooi to make his way to Senekal Magistrates Court. We know that this is for the 21-year-old Brendin Horner, and they are saying that they will be marching that side peacefully. They don't expect or want any violence from any groupings, encouraging their members to also abide by the law, and that farm murders and farm attacks is a huge issue in South Africa, that it threatens food security in our country. So we'll be making our way from here in Witbooi, 65 kilometers, and we'll be then attending that court proceedings that side. We know that there's a huge police presence that in Senekal. We know that Police Minister Samkele and also the State Security Minister Ayanda Dlodo earlier this week visited the family of Brendin Horner, and also condemning the attack, but also saying that public violence should not be tolerated in this country.
Well, thank you so much to our reporter, Reginald Witbooi, who is with the farmers as they get ready to make that their way into the town of Senekal, a motorcade that will make its way from Witbooi, as he says, 65 kilometers from Senekal. And Samkele Maseko is in the town already, where EFF supporters in the main seem to have gathered. So that is the state of play at the moment.
All right, we'll go back to Samkele Maseko in just a couple of minutes. We need to, however, take a quick break here on the program. Don't go anywhere.